Hi, this is Joni, Holistic Health Guide and Human Design Reader. I wanted to hop on today as with so much going on this past year, many people are communicating that they're just fatigued and exhausted. No surprise, as many were already experiencing this before this last year of COVID, but now, with so many additional stressors at play, I want to share why, again, it's of utmost importance that we listen to our bodies. My intention here is to bring you digestible snippets of holistic habits to improve your health and well-being. I've started these new channels completely separate from past work to serve anyone seeking support at this time. Interesting times, to say the least, with very interesting things happening in media, so please like, subscribe, and share if this video resonates with you or could help someone you love. It simply helps more people to be well. Today I'm offering a bit on what's been a historically somewhat controversial condition termed adrenal fatigue that you may hear doctors today terming as HPA axis dysregulation, or HPAD for short. They all mean the same thing. The most simple explanation of adrenal fatigue that I've come across over time is that it's as though the adrenal glands, the little triangular-shaped glands that sit just above both kidneys in the upper abdomen, it's like they're pressing on the gas and on the brake at the same time, to the point of exhaustion. The glands are trying to produce and release hormones we need consistently by pressing on the gas, but during periods of chronic stress, your body simultaneously runs out of the hormone precursor materials that it uses to make the much-needed hormones. So in a sense, hitting the brakes at the same time. As this continues, it just becomes more and more difficult for your body to produce the correct and required levels of stress hormones, sex hormones, and other hormones, as well as neurotransmitters. As you may have guessed or already know, the adrenals are part of the endocrine system, so they essentially support self-regulation. This would include your metabolism, your immune system, blood pressure, and your response to stress. Stress is such a sneaky little beast. The potential causes and symptoms of adrenal fatigue are many, and I'll provide a full list below in the description for this video, so check it out down there. But a few of the most common, such as brain fog, moodiness, and sleep difficulties, these can be indicative of so many different disorders, so they're often overlooked by doctors. Herein lies some of the confusion for both the patients and the doctors as to why we may be so worn out. I personally had no luck with doctors or any other specialists, really, in determining what was going on with me, and for the most part just had to figure it out. Time and time again, after several experiences throughout my adulthood, it's more often than not come down to 100% stress. So again, the science briefly is that there is an overstimulation of the adrenal glands from long bouts of consistent stress that can stem from just one or many areas of life that leads to an inconsistent level of cortisol specifically, which is known as the stress hormone, that hormone going into the bloodstream. This is where hitting the gas and hitting the brakes at the same time analogy comes into play. I hope that makes sense. This condition, is one of the main reasons I shifted my career into wellness in 2013, which I say just so that you know that I'm really speaking from personal experience. Without going into all of the dirty details, which included many of the top 10 stressors in life, I was eventually just totally benched. I worked far too much for far too long for far too little. This is during the time of the recession, 2008 recession. And my body just started screaming at me. It was shutting down in various ways. And I tried to ignore that because I pretty much had to until I just couldn't anymore. So I had to find ways to make changes. I had to throw caution to the wind in a lot of ways just to take care of myself regardless of anything else. Which sounds dramatic, but it was because I had to commit to my health in ways that were far from obvious on the surface. I looked, like I was very healthy, but clearly there was some other stuff going on. So I stripped down a lot of life and spent a lot of time resting and recovering, yet I still wasn't reviving. I was right around 40 years young at the time, almost that old, young, and couldn't for the life of me figure out why I was still so dang tired. I was a former competitive athlete with decades of daily exercise and healthy habits in place. At the time, I had a daily 90-minute yoga practice. I had slimmed down my social life down to almost nothing in order to rest more, and was just really eating clean and no alcohol, doing everything I could think of to get better as quickly as possible. I had left my career, and yet I still wasn't snapping back as quickly as I had in the past. A friend at my yoga studio, shout out to the old Kula at Yoga Works on Main Street, Santa Monica. My friend looked at me one day as we were always discussing all things health and wellness there, and she said, it sounds like you may have adrenal fatigue. I had been to many doctors, as I said, to no avail, but this was a new topic to me. This was around 2010, so it was new to many of us, and so I went down the rabbit hole. I just researched like crazy, and suddenly I was seeing all of the dots connecting. I learned a lot, and probably most importantly, that it could take a lot more time than I expected to recover. So in some ways, this too was stressful, but I just had to keep doing what I was doing, and essentially I became a full-on self-care junkie in order to get well. During this time, I taught myself to surf, which I'll be forever grateful for, because the ocean, I do believe, was a big part of my healing. And I began to, I went down a new path into this career of wellness to share what I had learned, and some other gentler practices. I had a 90-minute daily yoga practice, but it was actually a very strong practice. And so dropping into more of a softer yin practice was one of the things that I simply needed to do to help myself recover. So I went down this path into wellness to share what I'd learned from this one experience of a few over my adulthood that could support others seeking their own path to self-heal. Adrenal fatigue is no joke, but after experiencing significant stress and/or trauma, much like what millions of people are going through around the world right now as we hit year 1 of this whole COVID thing, if this video helps just one person who is burnt out and fatigued and struggling to figure out what's going on for them and to make changes or even consider making changes, it's totally worth it. It really is possible to self-heal by gradually or not so gradually shifting different parts of our lives. If you have any questions at all, please reach out at my contact info in the description below. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It really does help more people to learn to self-heal. Okay, y'all, that's a quickie on adrenal fatigue. The road to recovery may be long and winding, but we know so much more than we did a decade ago, and it truly is possible. When we learn our very own unique human designs, we can then operate with better strategies that will allow for a lot more magic to happen. So take care of yourself, and bye for now.